You can fake strength for a short time. You can fake confidence. You can fake charm, kindness, even discipline. But the truth always leaks out. Small, quiet cracks appear in behavior, and sooner or later, they betray what a man really is. I learned this early. In my world, surrounded by liars, flatterers, and cowards, I could not afford to guess who was strong and who was pretending. Guessing wrong could cost me power, reputation, even life. So I studied, and I discovered that weakness doesn't reveal itself through shouts. It slips through habits. It appears in the way a man speaks, reacts, and carries himself when no one is watching. And once you recognize these patterns, you can see through anyone. You gain a weapon most men never hold: the ability to know who will stand firm and who will collapse. That was my greatest advantage. And if you learn to see what I saw, it could be yours too. Weakness has many disguises, but there are 7 that always reveal themselves. They are subtle, but once you know them, you cannot unsee them. Let's begin. The first is overjustification. Weak men explain too much. Strong men decide. That is the difference. A prince confident in his power speaks little. He says what must be said, and then he moves. But the insecure man, he cannot stop talking. He repeats his point. He explains his choices. He wants others to agree so he can feel sure of himself. But in truth, his words are not proof of logic. They are cries for approval. I watched this in court again and again. The powerful remain silent. The powerless try to sound clever. And every time a man spoke too much, I knew he was not sure of himself. He was begging for permission to exist. This is why I tell you, when a man justifies endlessly, do not hear conviction. Hear fear. The second is weaponized niceness. Weak men often look kind. They smile. They agree. They offer help. But their kindness is not real. It is scary wearing a mask. They avoid conflict because they are terrified of rejection. They say yes when they should say no. They apologize not because they are guilty, but because they are weak. And when this false kindness fails, it quickly rots. They become bitter, sarcastic, resentful. Their smile disappears, and you see the anger they tried to hide. I wrote once that a prince must know how to do wrong, but not use it unless compelled. Restraint is strength, but fake kindness is not restraint. It is submission. It is the posture of a man who cannot stand on his own. And once you see this, you know he cannot be trusted with power. For the moment tension rises, his mask will crack. The third is addiction to display. There are men who cannot survive without attention. They post, they perform, they exaggerate victories. They need the world to look at them, because without that gaze, they feel they disappear. These men are the easiest to control. They will betray allies, expose secrets, do anything, so long as they are being seen. For them, silence is death. Stillness is irrelevant. I saw them often. And I learned quickly, if you want to break such a man, you do not strike him. You ignore him. Take away his stage, and he will destroy himself trying to be noticed again. The strong train in private. The weak demand applause. That is the difference. The fourth behavior is fear of silence. Weak men cannot sit in stillness. They rush to fill it with words, with jokes, with apologies. Silence makes them anxious because in silence, the truth of their weakness echoes too loudly. But I made silence my weapon. In a room of noise, I remained still. I let others reveal themselves. And the longer they spoke, the more they exposed their fears. Remember this: silence, when mastered, becomes presence. Presence becomes power, and power does not need a shout. The fifth is compulsive agreement. Weak men cannot hold boundaries. They say yes too often, not because they agree, but because they fear conflict. They think a weak yes will buy peace, but it never does. It buys disrespect. I learned to test men this way. I would offer them a choice, knowing it was against their interest. The weak always agreed. The strong, they paused. They risked my disapproval to hold their ground. And in that pause, I knew who could be trusted. Understand this: a man who fears saying no will never lead. He is too busy protecting himself from rejection. The sixth is emotional reactivity. Weak men live in panic. A small criticism throws them into rage. A minor insult crushes them. A little silence makes them spiral. They cannot control themselves, so anyone who learns their triggers controls them. I saw this often. The men who shouted first, who reacted the fastest, who tried to prove themselves in anger. These were the weakest of all, because their enemies never had to fight them. They only had to provoke them. The seventh and final behavior is hunger for approval. Weak men are not content with who they are. They need constant validation. If they are not praised, they feel worthless. If they are not admired, they collapse. And this hunger makes them slaves. They will serve anyone who feeds it. Give them a compliment, and they follow. Give them attention, and they obey. They think they are being valued. In truth, they are being used. I saw entire factions crumble because leaders were desperate to be liked. But I tell you, it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Love fades. Fear endures. Approval is a chain. Break it. Now, you may think this is only about others. It is not. The greater danger is not spotting these behaviors in enemies, but finding them in yourself. I feared weakness within me more than I fear my rivals. Because if you do not master your own weakness, the world will use it against you. So I tested myself. I watched how often I explained. I measured how comfortable I was with silence. I counted how many times I said yes when I should have said no. Each time I caught myself feeding weakness, I cut it out, piece by piece, because I knew if I did not, someone else would. This is the war within. It is daily, and if you lose, you will never rise. You will always serve, for weakness does not remain hidden. It leaks out. Others see it before you do, and once they see it, you are no longer in control. But if you kill these weaknesses, something strange happens. You stop needing validation. You stop fearing silence. You stop performing. And suddenly, your presence alone changes the room. People measure their words around you. They adjust themselves, not because you threaten them, but because they feel your strength without you saying a word. This is power. True power. The kind that does not beg, does not shout, does not explain. So what must you do? First, speak less than expected. Let others overexpose themselves. Second, master silence. Make it your ally, not your fear. Third, reward unpredictably. Give approval rarely, so when you do, it carries weight. Fourth, protect your boundaries. Say no without apology. And finally, make your respect expensive. Do not give it freely. Do not flatter. Do not smile for nothing. Let others earn it. And once they do, they will treasure it. This is how you turn weakness into your ladder. You spot it in others. You erase it in yourself. And in the end, you rise, not by chasing applause, not by performing, but by building a strength so quiet, so undeniable, that no one dares question it. Understand this. Weak men reveal themselves. Strong men conceal themselves. And when you walk into a room needing nothing, explaining nothing, begging for nothing, you become untouchable. That is the path. That is the power. And that is the lesson I leave you.